John Fredericks, America's Godzilla of truth, popular and proficient in picking politics with prophetic precision. And now Jay Fred's picking football. Are y'all ready for this? All across the airwaves and streams of the John Fredericks Media Network. When the game is on your mind and money's on the line, Godzilla Wins, your guide to picking football winners. With America's Godzilla of truth, John Fredericks, along with his partners in point picking, Jack and Nate. Also weekly contributors to the website of winners, GodzillaWins.com. Before you make that play, hear what J-Fred has to say. Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
Oh yeah, for entertainment purposes only.
All right, folks, welcome to Godzilla Wins Saturday, 9 a.m. Great to have you with us. Our panel, Jack Fredericks, well, he's live in Tunica, Mississippi. We got Nate live in Reno, ready to go. Big day in college basketball. Sheriff David Clarke joining us from Chicago. And, of course, your host here, John Fredericks of Godzilla Wins. You can call me Godzilla. And here we are in Cary in Woke County, North Carolina, where it is 27 degrees, guys, when I got out today. So I'm not sure what it is in Chicago, Sheriff, but right here, a very crisp 27 degrees. Anyway, it's good to have everybody with us. We're on Getter Live as well. You want to check that out. I want to thank Michael for all he does, our producer. This segment brought to you by our great friends at rosiesgaming.com. They're giving away so much money. They paid out over $500 million in jackpots. Fernando, get this, 72,000 at Rosie's in Hampton. Hey, that's a lot of jackaroo. Bob won 56 large at Rosie's in my favorite, New Kent. Ready for this? Rosie's in Richmond had 3 winners over $100,000 in January. Now, new games at Rosie's. Ultimate Firelink, Rakin' Bacon Deluxe, Ann's favorite, Mom's. Wheel of Fortune, she loves that. We're going to be there on Wednesday. Can't wait. Learn more about Rosie's rewards and jackpots with rosiesgaming.com. They're in New Kent, Vinton, outside of Roanoke, Rich Vegas, Hampton, Dumfries, Collinsville. Coming soon to Emporia. Just go to rosiesgaming.com. That's rosiesgaming.com. Have all the fun there. The food is great. The fun off the charts. And for you guys out there, if you take your significant other, guess what? You might get lucky twice. Great to have you with us. So let's get right to these. Let's get right to it, gentlemen. Good to have you with us after that Saturday situation. I want to get to, I want to start, if I can, if you don't mind, with the line here on the Super Bowl, and just kind of start with that right off the bat. You've got Philadelphia -1.5. It opened at 1, it went up to 1.5, and you got to ask yourself, after the pretty massive victory that the Eagles had and some of the issues that we all saw, obviously, the other day in that game, what do you guys think of this line? I'm going to start with Nate.
I mean, the line makes sense to me. The line makes sense at 2. You know, it opened at 2. It's down to 1.5 at most places right now. And that makes sense. I mean, the Eagles just looked a lot better, right? So, I mean, in terms of like the line, it makes sense. I don't think there's anything weird with this. I think it's fun that we finally have like a pretty much a coin flip Super Bowl. It feels like that doesn't happen very often. But, you know, Kansas City got lucky. I'm sure we're going to talk about the state of NFL officiating or whatever at some point in the show. But, you know, Kansas City was fortunate to escape with a win, and Philly just looked dominant. Sure, they were playing a team without a quarterback for most of the game, but, you know, Philly for the whole season has been pretty much like top to bottom, the best roster in the league. I don't have many arguments with people that say that. So I think it makes sense. You know, that's sort of my initial reaction is that, oh, this looks pretty sharp. I'm not going to bet it.
Well,
So,
I mean,
yeah.
You know, 1.5 right now. There's no question there's Kansas City money, but Jack, where's the public money going now?
Public money is all on the Eagles. So let me pull it up here. Sorry, I was commenting on Getter there. I believe the public money is at
62%.
Yeah, 62% for the Eagles, both the public money and the public bets. So that's an interesting distinction. A lot of times you'll see if you're looking for an edge or something, public bets are everyone. So all four of us, if we are in Tennessee and we load up the DraftKings account after we put in the Godzilla promo and get our $200 in free play, then we go on and we say, okay, we like the Eagles. We all bet the Eagles. That's everybody. We bet one unit. All of our units are $100. That's $400 on the Eagles, but it's 4 bets. Now, the money percentage is what we look at when we want to see what the professionals are betting, because a lot of times the public bets, the number of bets will be different than the money. And sometimes you'll see, okay, actually the professionals are fading the public, and that's why the line's moving in this way or that way. So that's one thing to always look out for. Those two things are very different and very important. But the money is what we look at, because that's what the professionals are doing. And it's the same as the public bets right now. It's both at 62%. Everybody seems to like the Eagles with the small spread. Nobody seems afraid to lay the 1.5 after a dominating performance in both the divisional round and the championship round. And the the Chiefs, with their hobbled quarterback and needing the refs to get the win there. So both the public and the pros like the Eagles, 62%.
Okay, so let's bring Sheriff Clarke and David. It's odd though, Jack, that you get both public money, public percentage of bets, and total money equaling the same amount on the same team. I mean, that's very, very rare. We go through this every single week, and normally you get one or the other, right? You get the big money on one team, get the public bets on the other team. So, David, what do you think this is? Just sentiment for the Eagles?
Well, first of all, we got a great take on this from the laboratory in terms of what the spread is about, but I'm going to break this into layman's terms, okay? And I look at matchups.
Right.
Philadelphia is just too strong. All right. It was not a fluke that they steamrolled the 2 playoff games that they did. They're too big up front. They're too physical. They're too fast. Kansas City does not match up well with Philadelphia. I didn't think they matched up that well against Cincinnati. However, and basically, Cincinnati just failed to keep pressure on Mahomes and keep him dancing back there with that bad ankle. Seemed like they just wanted to keep him contained. He wasn't going to run anyway until the end of the game. But at 1.5, I was shocked by it. I think it's too low. I would have expected something like 4, maybe 3.5.
Right.
Philadelphia. So something must be going on here. I don't know what it is. I'll leave it to the two experts, Nate and Jack, as to why. But I don't see this as being that good of a matchup. I look at when Tampa Bay beat Kansas City in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. They just beat them up front. They pressured Mahomes. Mahomes was under pressure the entire game, and that's the kind of defensive front that Philadelphia has. So that's why I would go with the 1.5, because I think it's too low. But I guess people smarter than me figure 1.5, 2 is about good.
Well, Nate, how do you think that stacks up? Because I kind of agree with that, Sheriff. I happen to think the Eagles are a superior team up front, both sides. I mean, Chris Jones had a good game against Cincinnati. I guess their offensive line with some of those injuries, it didn't show itself in Buffalo. It certainly showed itself in Kansas City, and we're going to get to that game in a minute. But Nate, you look at these two teams, and I'm calling myself this week Godzilla. I mean, I just don't see. I mean, instead of the Godzilla of truth, I'm the Godzilla of truth. I don't see this, right? And you look at Kansas City, and you got to say there is a certain amount of sentiment money going to Mahomes. I don't care who he's playing or what the situation is. So I'll just call this basically Mahomes money. But I kind of agree with Sheriff Clarke here. This thing, I mean, I really thought it was going to open at 3, go to 3.5, and then I'm worried about maybe buying down a half and having to lay 125. None of that's happened. Why is this game only 1.5?
I think this game is 1.5 for I mean, to attract, betting. I mean, it kind of swung up to 2.5 at one point for the Chiefs, and then it kind of got banged back down. Here's the funny stat, right? I think that Sheriff Clarke is right in that, like, the Eagles are too strong. I think that they are a better team, and I think that they're just basically playing Mahomes. And here's a fun sort of stat. There's not been a Super Bowl winner. The MVP since 2000 has not won the Super Bowl. So what you're looking at is probably MVP. Mahomes is probably the MVP, but no MVP has ever won the Super Bowl the same season they've won the MVP award. So you're looking at basically the best team in football, just in terms of top to bottom roster. Eagles, great line, unbelievable defense, great rushing attack, great sort of offense, good everything, versus Mahomes, who makes up for a lot of deficiencies with Kansas City. I mean, Kansas City's not very good defensively. They struggle sometimes. They don't have awesome receivers. They don't really have much of a running game. The team is basically just Mahomes, which I think is why the Eagles are probably the play that a lot of people are leaning towards, just because the Eagles just look like a real team and the Chiefs just look like one guy who's got a bum ankle right now, has no mobility. So I think in that perspective, that's sort of how I'm looking at it just initially, is like Philadelphia is probably loving the chance to play Kansas City, because they're just like not a strong team that matches up well with Philly.
Well, I think if you're an Eagles fan, this has got to be your best matchup, Jack.
I think so.
It's your best matchup. It's a better matchup than the Cincinnati. He's already beaten them. I mean, it's who's with Burrow, who's got better receivers, and they had a running game until Mixon got rested. I don't know what the deal is with that. We're not going to get into that, but they certainly have a better running game. So I just think this was like their best matchup to get Kansas City here. And Mahomes is hobbling around. I mean, I don't know. It's 2 weeks. He gets another week off. And the other thing, I guess you have to really account for here, the only hesitation I've got, and because I lost on the Bengals last week, I love them. Good luck for me. I got out with the Eagles earlier in the afternoon. But the only hesitation I have, guys, is one thing, and that is if you look at Andy Reid's record with a bye week, it is like 101. I don't know how this guy manages to do it, but you give this guy and his staff, Andy Reid, 2 weeks, and they just figure out how to win games. I mean, his bye week record is unconscious. Maybe some of that is just, they were coming off playing weak teams, but he's essentially getting a bye week here. That's the only thing that gives me hesitation. Go ahead.
But in the postseason, he's not that good. In the postseason, his record comes down, like it's basically like 50-50. In the postseason, if he gets some time off, if his team has a bye going into the playoffs or before the Super Bowl, his record drops a lot. That's mostly a regular season sort of stat. It doesn't apply as much to the postseason.
Bye week trends.
Go ahead.
Yeah, bye week trends are not as important when both teams have a bye. So you like bye week trends when the Chiefs are coming off a bye in week 9 and they're playing a team that hasn't had a bye yet. Then they have a little bit of an advantage, especially if Andy Reid is coaching. But in the Super Bowl, both teams have a bye, so it's kind of like we're just starting over, like week 1 or whatever. So that trend I'm not as interested in. It is interesting that you bring up like that. You think that this is their best matchup. I would say that the Eagles' best matchup was last week when they played Josh Johnson and Christian McCaffrey at quarterback. I don't know what y'all are talking about with like, oh, this is their best matchup. They played nobody to get here. They played the Giants, who we know were overachievers, and beat an underachieving Vikings team, or a team that just wasn't that good. And then they beat the 49ers with no quarterback. I think had they played Dallas, maybe we would have seen a different outcome in that game. But I don't understand how y'all are so high on the Eagles when they haven't played anybody in a very long time to get to this point. The Chiefs are more battle tested. They tend to come out on top, and you're getting 2.5 or 1.5. Sorry.
1.5.
The spread was 2.5 a while ago, like Nate said. So I don't see what you guys see. I think their best matchup was Josh Johnson.
I think that, that always comes up when a team goes, 14-3 or 15-2 or whatever. people started looking at who they played, their opponents. Well, you should mow them down. That's exactly what they did. Had they snuck by, if they were sneaking by on their way to 14-3, I would say so. But they've been mauling people. But coming back to Kansas City, I think they're more than Mahomes. I think that the Eagles defense is going to have to account for Kelsey. And I think, Pacheco once again. And, they're not slouches on defense. They got, I think it's Frank Clarke. And then I'm trying to think of the guy who led the league in sacks. I can't think of his name. So, and then the other thing that I'd watch for, Andy Reid. John, you talked about it. Andy Reid, not coming off a bye, but Andy Reid game planning. I don't think he has any peer in the NFL in terms of a game plan to account for the his deficiencies or the other team's weaknesses, the other team's strengths. He knows what he's going to get with this Philadelphia defense because they faced it 2 years ago. I think it's 2 years ago with Tampa Bay when they had Shaq Barrett up front and Vita Vea. They got some dudes, on defense. And so I don't think it's totally out of the realm of possibility that Kansas City can win. I'm just a little surprised by the spread. That ankle is still going to bother him. In most circumstances, that's a 4 to 6 week injury to heal. You could see he was hobbled last week. And I can't figure out why Cincinnati didn't bring more pressure, play more 7-man fronts, and and just keep the guy having to move, for heaven's sakes, not sitting there in the back there in the pocket.
Right.
He didn't have to move at all, and that really hurt because he's going to find guys open. He's going to look guys open, and that's kind of what you saw.
Yeah, well, I thought the Bengals should have blitzed a lot more, and but look, we got to get to that game, and then we'll get to our picks here.
Well, one thing though, I think that's really important, and then we can move on. Jalen Hurts is also dealing with an injury, so I know that the high ankle sprain is a serious injury that does take 4 to 6 weeks. Doesn't look like Mahomes is going to be out for he doesn't have more rest than a week, but Hurts also has a shoulder injury too. So, he didn't look as limited as Mahomes did, but both these quarterbacks are dealing with an injury, and that Chiefs defensive front is real. It's not just Chris Jones. They've got about 3 guys there that get in the backfield and do a lot of damage. They don't have the secondary like the Eagles do. Eagles defense is more complete, but the Chiefs can pressure the ball and they can kind of stop the run and put a spy on Jalen Hurts so he's not as movable. So we'll see. But Hurts is also dealing with an injury, not as serious as Mahomes, but they're both pretty hobbled.
Well, let's get to this game last week, and I agree with what you're saying. I was really surprised with the pressure that the Chiefs got on Burrow after the Bills, which is supposed to be this great defense, got no pressure on them. And I thought, okay, they solved their offensive line. Obviously, they didn't. But look, guys, we can't go on and pick the Super Bowl without talking about this game last week and these calls at the end. The 5th down, the hit out of bounds that could have gotten called either way that basically determine the outcome of the game, which is a horrible call. The intentional grounding on Burrow, 3rd and 9, makes it 3rd and 19 with 3.5 minutes to go. Then they turn around on the next possession. Mahomes has got the ball, does the same thing, throws it into the dirt on a 2nd and 4, doesn't get an intentional grounding call. If they do that on the final possession, they're out of field goal range, clock runs out, they go to overtime. Then you go to that kickoff return. That's the thing that has infuriated me. You had 2 blocks in the back. I saw it right on TV. You had 2 of them, not 1, you had 2. That's what sprung them for the field goal. And then, you got this whole thing going on with these PIs downfield. I got to tell you that there's no casual fan that watched that game on Sunday night and didn't come away with a queasy feeling in their stomach like something was wrong. I'm not going to say it was rigged or any of that. But what's happening is Mahomes is turning into like Tom Brady number 2, where he gets all the calls, called never goes the other way. The NFL and Goodell and his, $5,000 overcoat and his $10,000 Armani suit and his $50,000 Rolex watch, right, comes down in the field, congratulating their new flower child of the NFL, Mahomes. I mean, it didn't feel good to anybody. When you have referees week in and week out, like that game, deciding a conference championship on bad calls. I mean, it's just something doesn't feel right to people. Nate, you can't watch this game. I'm going to get everybody involved here. Again, I'm not saying it was rigged, and I did bet the Bengals. I was pissed. There is sour grapes here, although I'm not a Bengals fan, as everybody knows. I hate them, but I did bet them. But I mean, they got 5 calls in a row going their way to influence, without a doubt, the outcome of the game. Somebody tell me I'm wrong here, Nate.
I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But I think that it's just the spotlight of it, right? It's a primetime game. It's the only game on. It's the only game people are watching. But for people that watch a lot of games like me and Jack do, this happens every week. There's just so much. The thing about the NFL is there's so much parity, right? Everyone is like the things that separate the top and the bottom teams aren't that much. So what people are complaining about is these calls, or like this thing breaks this way or this thing breaks that way. And the reality is that's kind of just an every week occurrence. It's just highlighted in the playoffs. We saw it when the Rams beat the Saints a couple of years ago to go to the Super Bowl on that PI call. That basically changed the game. This happens all the time. It's not, a script or rigged. It's just the nature of the NFL. I mean, all these games are played on a razor's edge and stuff like that. Like, Mahomes is going to get that call. He's the face of the NFL. He's the face of the Chiefs. He's, probably the MVP of the league this year. He's going to get that call when somebody puts their hands on him when he's going out of bounds. It's just how it goes. It's how it's always gone. He's not Tom Brady 2.0 or anything like that. They just protect their guys, and referees are under a ton of pressure to make sure those guys don't get hurt. It's not crazy, and it's not a conspiracy.
You can't throw that flag. Look, you can't throw that flag.
They throw that flag all the time.
The guy
they do it all the time. All they do is throw that flag.
They
don't throw it for Tannehill because he's garbage, but they throw it for everyone else if you watch another game.
Tannehill can't run past the line of scrimmage, so he's never near the sidelines. Like when a quarterback or a running back or a wide receiver is out of bounds and you go up and you push him while he's already out of bounds, that is a flag. That's how that works. Listen, you bet the Bengals. And you're mad because you didn't cover, and you almost had a week where you went 2-0.
Yes.
And you never, ever, ever go 2-0. If you bet 2 games, you either go 0-2 or 1-1. You don't go 2-0. And you were so close to going 2-0, and you lost. And now you're mad because of a bunch of flags that you think benefited the team you did not bet. Had you bet the Chiefs, you'd be sitting here telling us, oh, listen, well, this is the NFL, and, you can't just be hitting people out of bounds all the time, and and Eli Apple's holding everybody. So, get out of here with your nonsense. This is all just about how you lost a bet and now you're mad. That's all this is about.
John.
I am Mr. 500, but David. But how about those two? How about those two clips on the punt return?
Well, first of all, you said, tell me I'm wrong. I'll tell you you're wrong, and I'll tell you why, as it relates to the game. The officiating, I think most people would agree that officiating is good if you're not talking about it. Okay. Games of this magnitude, people look at it with a more jaundiced eye, if you will. And so these little things become big. However, because I think the guy shoved him, the Kansas City defender, he shoved him. He didn't shove him violently. That was a flop for the most part by Mahomes. In the NBA, you'd get warned the first time for a flop, and then you get called for a technical. I think the NFL ought to look at that sort of rule, because you see a lot of flopping going on, not just with quarterbacks, but in other situations. You'll see it with pass interference. A guy will throw his arms up, and so, the refs, they missed a couple calls. As Nate said, that's the nature of the game. They miss a lot of calls during the course of a game, but they're not always looked at it this way. But here's the thing with Cincinnati. Here's why they lost. Now, before I say that, there is I think, one situation in the NFL where a referee's bad call or questionable call can be the difference in the game. Most of the time, I think it evens out. But when it happens at the end of the game, that moved the ball up 15 yards and into a makeable field goal. that impacted the game, and the ref should have swallowed his whistle on that one, realizing Mahomes flopped. There's no doubt. Yeah, it was close. He probably pushed him when he had 1 foot out of bounds, but it wasn't flagrant. Now, Cincinnati, the reason they lost, they started slow. They needed to start fast like they usually do. I think I could be wrong here. I think they lead the league in number of opening drives for at least a score.
Yeah.
They got off to a slow start. They couldn't run the football. Mixon had 19 yards rushing, for heaven's sakes. So Cincinnati, they hung in there. They hung around because that's the attitude or the makeup of that team. But in the NFL and the playoffs, on the road, you can't continually be coming from behind during the course of the game. And that's exactly what Cincinnati did. They would get back in the game. They'd tie it, but then they'd go down again. So, and they had a chance at the end. It was 2 minutes and 36 seconds ago. They had the ball, and they ended up punting back to Kansas City. And then the play, John, you're talking about the blocks in the back all happened. But Cincinnati had their chances to win that game, but they didn't play the way they usually did. Coming from behind is not a good recipe in the playoffs in the NFL.
Yeah, well, look, they did have the ball, Jack, and Nate, and everybody here. They had 2 chances to win. They got the ball like 7 minutes to go. They ended up punting. Then they got the ball with 3.5 minutes to go. If they go down the field and get a field goal, run out the clock, they win. Game's over. So they did have two chances to win. But yeah, I should have gone 2-0. We'll leave it at that. All right, we're gonna get the Super Bowl picks here in a minute, but first, just very quickly, David, I know you and Nate are Cowboys fans. You guys fired your offensive coordinator that looked like he was 19 years old, very young looking guy, no question about that. And now McCarthy's back calling the plays. Before we get to the picks, I'll start with Nate. Nate, what, as a Cowboys fan, do you like that or not, and why? Quickly.
Yeah, I'm good with it. I'm good with it. I think that he probably needed to go. I mean, the play calling's been stale, and they've always had problems in the red zone. The red zone's always been an issue, and I think that when you combine it with Dak's like sort of uncharacteristic turnover rate this year, it's clear that something was going on and needed to change. Jerry Jones is typically pretty stubborn with head coaches. He sticks with the wrong guy for a long time, so he's going to stick with McCarthy just like he stuck with Jason Garrett. I'm not sure why he does that, but that's just sort of his MO. So I think that if you were going to change something, it had to be Kellen Moore, because they just aren't right.
You can't play musical chairs at head coach. You look at the teams in the NFL that are near the bottom; they're continually firing and hiring new coaches. Right. That's why I think Jones does it, for consistency. Sure, he held on to Garrett too long. As for Kellen Moore, I was doing somersaults when that story came out that they parted ways. Well, I was calling for him to be hired somewhere so that we could get rid of the guy. I thought that's the only way we're going to get rid of Kellen Moore is if somebody hires him as a head coach. And I couldn't figure out why anybody would be interested in hiring him as a head coach. So McCarthy calling the plays, he called the plays at Green Bay. Look at the record; it speaks for itself. I think he'll straighten Dak out. I really do. What I mean by that is he'll put him in better positions where he won't make stupid throws or take too many chances.
Yeah.
So I like it. And plus it adds more accountability to McCarthy. McCarthy, he might be on the hot seat next year. I don't know that. I'm not going to go out and start that thread. However, the fact is that now there's more accountability. Get him more involved in the game. I like the move. They're shaking things up. They got rid of just about all of their offensive assistants. The line coach, Philbin, gone, and some other people. Shake things up. Re-energize that organization. Bring in some new energy, some new eyes. When you go 2 back-to-back years at 12-5, I think it's pretty good. But when nothing happens, you got to look and say, we're not in this to go 12-5 anymore. We're not doing well in the playoffs. So you have to make some changes. I think they make the right ones. The biggest thing, though, is Quinn coming back. That was huge.
Well, they got a good defense. And look, Kellen Moore, probably the second worst offensive coordinator in the NFL, second only to the Titans guy that they that they fired that had the DUI. I'm not even going to say his name on the air because we all Titans fans hate him. I'm sure that the Titans will end up hiring Kellen Moore so they can go from the worst
No,
OC.
he was hired by the Chargers to be their offensive coordinator.
Right. Isn't that the team that coughed up the 27-0 lead to Jacksonville like a
It is
like a hairball, right? They deserve each other. Let me put it that way. Absolutely deserve each other. All right, we're going to get to our Super Bowl picks fans here in a minute because I know you're on the edge of your seat. You probably kind of know where we stand, but we'll go to that officially in a minute. But this segment brought to you by our good friend Patrick Asselone at TargetTrading.co. With all the fear out there about the economy and personal finances, many people are turning to trading the markets to help support themselves and their families. And I can tell you that over 2 years, we have about 100 students of our radio listening and TV audience that has gone to Target Trading. I'm yet to get one email or text from anybody that's saying they've not been successful with it. So right now, they got an A+ rating with our people. And look, trading is risky, no doubt. But Target Trading Academy and Patrick Asselone is considered the #1 futures trading education company in the industry. Over the last 15 years, their team has developed a successful, respectable, and repeatable trading strategy, highly disciplined, and Target Trading Academy delivers these trading methods to you in a highly structured and effective learning environment. One of their biggest advocates is my wife, Ann, the chief operating officer of our company, who went through it, says it was the best program she'd ever had. She was successful with it. Now, if you want proof, you can just check out any of our students that have been in it, but check out the student reviews on Trustpilot and online. You're going to find 5-star reviews across the board. All you have to do is go to Target Trading, TargetTrading.co. That's TargetTrading.co. Get more information there or give Patrick a call yourself. 888-203-3731, 888-203-3731. Get in the game, targettrading.co. Patrick Asselone, 888-203-3731. Mention Godzilla, Godzilla, John Fredericks. Any of the above gets you 15% off. But for this week, I'm changing my name to the Godzilla of Truth. Now let's get to our picks. Well, I'll start. Godzilla. Eagles -1.5. I can't believe this game is only 1.5. In fact, I'm so mad about the Bengals game because I put everything on the Eagles this week. Now I'm a little, I have to manage it a little bit. My DraftKings account, but I love the Eagles -1.5. I just don't see Kansas City winning. I think Philadelphia's the best team in the NFL. I love A.J. Brown. I love what they're doing. I love what they do on both sides of the ball. I love the spirit they've got. I just think it's their year. I mean, they are the best team in the NFL, and there's upsets in Super Bowls every so often, but normally the better team is going to win. And I know Jack's going to jump on me for this because this has always been my philosophy. You get the better team normally is going to win. And look, if this was 3.5 or 4 or 5, maybe have a little hesitation, but 1.5. I love the Eagles. Call me Godzilla. I'm going with the Eagles -1.5. Who wants to jump in? Jack?
I'm not. Who's making picks a week out from the Super Bowl?
Because people are betting it right now. That's why. Millions of dollars have already been bet. But if you want to pass, that's fine.
I don't have millions of dollars. I don't even have $20
but
to bet on this game.
People are betting the game now, and if you want to wait till next week, that's fine.
Yeah, I do because there's a whole week to go and we have no idea what's going to happen or what's going to come out, or maybe I find a stat that I really like. Plus we got to get all our props together, which we'll have a huge article on that on Godzilla Wins this week. There'll be a mammoth Super Bowl prop thread so we can all go nuts on Sunday. But I'm leaning Chiefs for sure. I would have liked to grab them at 2.5, so maybe I don't want to bet them because I'm hoping the line moves again. I lean Chiefs because of Mahomes, because of Reed, because of the defensive line. I just think you're catching points with a team that is more experienced in the Super Bowl and will probably end up on top, just the way they did in that AFC Championship game. So I'm leaning Chiefs, but we'll see. I'd have to wait to see about Mahomes' ankle. I mean, that's the big thing.
Look, you're leading Chiefs. I've already got my pick in. Nate?
I'm I also am like Jack in that I haven't actually bet this game and am not telling anyone to bet it. We'll have our actual bets next week for our show because we have to have something to talk about next week as well for the Super Bowl. But my initial reaction is that the Eagles are a better team. Football's a team game. And the Eagles, like, you know, I mean, it's a team game, yeah. Mahomes is great, obviously. But the Eagles are 15-1 when Hurts plays. The record speaks for itself. So my initial reaction is probably Eagles, but I'm willing to be pretty soft on that and potentially change it next week after I spend a little bit more time staring at this game.
Well, listen, I grabbed it at 1.5.
I'm sure you did.
I grabbed it and I emptied my DraftKings account on it. In fact, I got the
totally
VIP.
Checks out.
I know. I already got one of the VIPs, and DraftKings actually called me and said, we noticed you might need to re-up. I said, well, I'll wait until after the Super Bowl. But look, I grabbed it at 1.5 because this line's not going down. This thing is gonna go up as more Eagles money. All right, we got two leans. We got a solid me. That leaves David, Clarke. David, what do you think of this game? 1.5.
Well, I was surprised by Jack and Nate on the picks. They're leaning. They're, Jack, you're like a ship in a harbor. The saying is, a ship is safest in the harbor, but that's not what ships were made for. All right, you got to get out there sometimes. And as for Mahomes and his injury, you said you wanted to wait a little bit. The Chiefs aren't going to let anything out about that. They're going to say he's good to go, 100%, no problems, even if it's not true. So don't wait for that. I'm going to go out on a limb. You know what they say about that, right? Don't be afraid to go out on a limb. That's where the fruit is. And I'm going to take the Chiefs solely because of Andy Reid. Andy Reid will come up with something to offset the fact that he doesn't have the team speed. The Eagles are stronger and more physical and faster up front. He will come up with something. And so for that point, I'm not leaning Chiefs. I'll take the minus whatever it is, 1.5, 2.
You get 1.5, but your official or if you're so the way we're doing this, I bet the Eagles minus 1.5. So if it goes up to 3 on Sunday, I've got my bet in. So I'm rated on 1.5, and I'm telling my audience, if you like the Eagles, bet this game now because this line is not going to go down. Jack and Nate are leaning. That's fine. You can wait, do what you want. And it sounds like David, you're going with Kansas City plus 1.5. Right,
plus
right now.
I meant plus, right.
And
yeah,
I guess
plus 1.
I guess the other thing is for Nate and I mean, for me anyway, the Super Bowl is an incredible time to bet a ton of props. So the spread is just not as interesting as a whole bunch of different props that we can play, like the dumbest props, like the coin toss, and I mean just ridiculous stuff like that. So
coin toss.
you can bet that. I mean you can do all sorts of stuff. On the
so
Super Bowl.
How about the one? How long will whoever does the national anthem? How long will it take them to get through it? Yeah, that's for junkies. Yeah. You guys are junkies. That's for junkies.
Yeah, we love that stuff.
Totally sick.
That's why we started a website. So yeah, we'll have some of those out, and I don't think the spread is as interesting. But Sheriff Clarke does remind me his ship in the harbor metaphor. I'll tell this story really quickly. When I was 18, I was being recruited by the Marines to go to the Marines like everyone else when they're 18, and I was going to go, and I was talking like a Navy recruiter came up to me, and we were talking, and he was like, well, listen, you should think about the Navy, because the thing with the Marines is if you join the Navy, we pick the Marines up and we put them on the ship, and then we take the ship to the war zone, and then we let them off and we wave to the Marines as they go to war. So you should join the Navy.
Good men. And, good men.
Yeah.
Remember when Nicholson said about the Navy, the Tom Cruise was the Navy prosecutor, and he says, yeah, we like you guys. Every time we need a ride, you guys give us one.
Yeah. Well, look, I never talked to the Marines guy again, but I did have a pretty good relationship with the Navy guy.
Yeah.
So.
Safe in the harbor.
So maybe I do like the harbor.
All right, guys. So we got our picks in for that, and we're gonna move on. But before we get to NCAA basketball, we got baseball coming up. Spring training starts. It's actually days away now from starting, and we're not going to get into baseball today. But one thing I just want to spend a couple minutes on is they changed the Major League Baseball schedules. Now, this is a dramatic change that kind of got under the radar screen. I get what they're doing, but they're changing the game. If you're a nostalgia baseball guy like me, you hate this stuff, right? You hate it because old school, the NL plays the NL, the AL plays the AL, the World Series is meaningful because they don't meet during the season. Then they had interleague play. Now they have this balanced schedule thing. Everybody plays everybody. And so I hate it, obviously. Now, as an Astro fan, I doubly hate it because I'd rather play 100 games with the A's and the Angels who stink, right? So you just rack up wins. So it's the Yankees that are behind this thing because they're behind all the conspiracies. The Yankees were pissed because they didn't have a good record as we did because they had to play Toronto and Boston and what is it, Tampa, and we got to play Oakland 92 times. So I get it. But the reason they say they're doing it is because they're taking the NBA model and they want to get the best players that they're showcasing, the Tonys and the Angels and all that. They want to get the best players and get them in different cities. For instance, the Giants are opening at Yankee Stadium, which is unheard of in April. Just very quickly, because we don't have a lot of time. I got to get to basketball. But, Jack, you've been following baseball with me since you're 3, right? What do you think of this new schedule where everybody plays everybody the same time?
I think it's fine. Who cares who plays who in baseball? Like, who's watching games in June or July? I mean,
I am.
Like, yeah, you are. So, I mean, this is, listen, I'll pull back the curtain a little bit. If you're in studio with my father while he's on his radio show, when he's done talking and the other person starts talking, he goes on his phone and looks at Twitter until the other person stops talking, and then he starts talking again. And that's what I do when he starts talking about baseball in January. So I was just looking at the Getter Live. I mean, if the Astros and the Cardinals play in June, I'm sure that'll be really interesting for baseball fans. But as an Astros fan, I don't care who we play. All we do is win. So
yeah, that's true.
Like we could play the Yankees 100. I'd rather play the Yankees all day long. All we do is beat them. So just Astros Yankees for a whole month, and we'll be 28-2. I don't care who we play. So I mean, it's fine. That's baseball's always changing stuff to try to get people interested in the sport.
So mom will wade in. And of course, we watch Astro games every night. That's our thing. She's a very, very good baseball fan. Really knows the game. So I asked her opinion, and she says, "Well, doesn't that mean we don't play as many West Coast games that we can't watch?" Good point, Nate.
I mean, I think that it's fine too. I'm inclined to agree with Jack. I mean, at the end of the day, like, the traditional baseball guy stuff just isn't good for ratings. Baseball doesn't attract that many viewers. I think this is the way to get more eyeballs on the sport, which means more money. This is capitalism, baby. Like, it seems like a fine thing to me.
You got any now? So everybody knows Nate, me, and Jack are Astro fans. David Clarke is a diehard Cubs fan. By the way, they suck, but go ahead, David. Do you have any thoughts at all on this? Do you care?
Yeah, baseball has a number of problems. One is showcasing their stars. It's hard to do. The reason it's hard to do, in the NBA, you feed your superstars, right? Every time down the court, you get the ball into their hands. You can only send Aaron Judge up to the plate probably 4 times a game, for heaven's sakes. So that's one of the problems. The length of the game. They've made some rule changes there to kind of speed the game up. I like that. I think the season's too long. There's only a few good teams that really have a chance, and by the All-Star break, half the league is out of it. So I think they got to look at that as well, how to make this thing more competitive. I just think 162 games, you can sleepwalk through the first 81 and then come alive in the second 81. Every year, the Philadelphia Phillies did it last year. the Washington Nationals a couple of years ago. And you shouldn't be able to sleepwalk through a season like that and turn it on at the end. So I don't know. We'll see. Those teams that hardly get to some of these cities, okay, but I don't know it's going to increase ticket sales. And then wait until load management hits baseball. All right. So that when the Yankees, we like to talk about them, people say, hey, I want to see Aaron Judge. And you go and he's going to sit out a couple games. When load management hits baseball, that's going to screw this whole thing up.
You know, I hadn't thought of that. But I've always thought baseball, forget the luxury tax. I think they need a salary cap the way football's done. And I'll go back to Cecil Upshaw, former lineman. Former lineman with the Oakland Raiders. He was the players representative.
Gene Upshaw.
Yeah, Cecil Upshaw, right? He's the one that
Gene Upshaw.
Yeah, he's the one that negotiated the salary cap. And like all the there was a lot of players saying, he gave away their store. And I'll never forget what he said. He said, we can have a league where the elites win all the games, and it's the haves versus the have-nots, and all the players at the top get all the money, and everybody else are the bottom feeders. Or we can have a league where it's equal opportunity, where you can go from worst to first. Everybody can make more money because it's even, because you'll get higher ratings, you'll get better TV contracts. And so he says, I'm playing the long game. That guy, forget Goodell and these other clowns. That Upshaw was the guy that made the NFL what it is today, because that salary cap brought parity to football. And that's why when, you can go, you can be Cincinnati and go from worst to first, which I think baseball needs, because you got teams in there like, if you're a Pittsburgh Pirate fan, like, what's the point? Right? You can't win. You can't pay your players. You give them away. You fall in love with the player. Then they can't pay them. They leave. Yeah, same thing with Kansas City. They did win in 2015, but some of these bottom feeder teams. All right, we're going to move off that, guys. We're going to get to rapid fire, our NCAA hoops picks of the day, and but we're going to start with DraftKings. Right now, all you got to do is download the free DraftKings app. It's free. Put in promo code Godzilla. Say, maybe I'm going to bet the Super Bowl. You bet in $5. They're giving away free money. You put in $5 as a brand new player, DraftKings app, promo code Godzilla. You get 200 free bets instantly. All you got to do is put $5 in, bet Kansas City, bet a prop, bet Eagles, whatever you want. $200 shows up in your account instantly. As soon as you place that bet, they're giving you $200. Let's go to DraftKings.com, download their sportsbook app, put a promo code Godzilla. That's promo code Godzilla, and you're absolutely good to go. Put in $5, get $200 back in free bets, and do it now. Okay, NCAA basketball hoops, rapid fire, guys. We got 12 minutes. Nate, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, are we just picking games, or are we talking about who's hot, who's not?
Who's hot and who's not? And then games.
Who's hot?
Go ahead.
Who's hot and who's not? The hottest team in the country has to be Purdue. They're 22-1. They just demolished Penn State 80-60 on Wednesday. They're the unanimous AP number one team in the top 25 rankings. I think that it has to be Purdue, are just scorching hot. And then it's like everyone else. It's a super weird season, and we thought that when it was, this one and done thing was going to change college basketball, and then we got this the sort of transfer portal thing changed college athletics a little bit, and the NIL stuff, and we thought, the rich get richer. But what's happened with basketball is that everyone's just losing to everybody, because these guys, just if they aren't seeing the court, they just transfer to somewhere else that maybe they wouldn't typically go because it's so easy. So we're seeing a ton of parity in college basketball, which has been a really fun thing to watch and a really frustrating thing to bet, as I'm sure Jack can attest, as me and him dive into the deep end of college basketball degeneracy. But it's basically Purdue, Virginia, Alabama beat Vanderbilt on Tuesday, 101-44. They're 9-0 in the SEC. I know Jack's an SEC guy, so we have to talk about, the Tide. So from my perspective, it's been a really fun season in terms of that. If you want to get your, college basketball bets in, don't bet the favorites, in terms of winning the whole thing. Bet some long shots, because this season anything could happen in terms of just who's hot and who's not. I mean, this is just a really, really weird season in terms of just the rankings and where teams are at. In terms of what I like today, I say all of this, but often as I do, I am a contrarian. The first one that stood out to me today, it's a noon Eastern time, 9 a.m., starting a couple hours from me. I like Virginia Tech. This line just looks fishy to me. Virginia's been playing unbelievable basketball, but somehow Virginia Tech is a 1.5 point favorite over the number 6 ranked Virginia team. So for all your listeners in Virginia, I do like Tech today. That line just looks weird to me. It's sort of the first thing I see. I like Indiana. Same sort of deal. Purdue's just red hot, but somehow Indiana's basically a coin flip game against Purdue. They're a slight favorite, even though Purdue has been playing unbelievable. Basically, like, my strategy is to bet the team that doesn't make any sense in college basketball at this point. Just bet the team, like, you just look at it and you're like, this doesn't make any sense. I'll just bet on the team that doesn't make any sense, is basically how I've been betting college basketball right now. So I like Indiana against Purdue. I like Virginia Tech against Virginia, and I like Gonzaga versus St. Mary's later tonight if you need a nightcap game. Those are kind of the big three that I love, and they're all sort of the same. They're all ranked teams, and like the lines just don't make any sense to me. It doesn't seem real. So that's sort of where I've been with college basketball, just because it's been such a weird season. And Jack can probably attest to how poorly I've been giving him picks. So don't listen to me at all.
You got off to a hot start, though. That one day I followed you. By the way, go to GodzillaWins.com. Everything is there. GodzillaWins.com.
Yeah, I'll have a write-up for all this stuff in an hour. Yeah.
GodzillaWins.com, and if bookmark that. We got a $5,000 sweepstakes there. The site is hype. Jack's the editor. Nate, senior contributor. It's a really good site. We're hiring writers. If you know anybody, got a niece, nephew, son, daughter, or you're retired, you want in. We do pay our writers. We're looking for content. We like fans. You got to know what you're talking about. Obviously, you got to be able to write. But if you're interested at all, just go to GodzillaWins.com. There'll be a little tab there, info. Send it to Jack. He'll look at it, because we're adding writers every week. But it's a really great site. Go to GodzillaWins.com. You're good to go. All right, I'm going to jump in here. I'm going to give you my top 4 of the day. I don't have 5. I've got 4. Number 1, Kansas, pick 'em over the Cyclones. Here's why I like Kansas. They're a more consistent team. Basically, the Cyclones hit or miss every single time. They win, they lose, they play good, they don't. I'll take Kansas as consistency, pick 'em at home. I like Clemson at home over Miami. Miami does not play well on the road. Yes, I know this is an ACC game. Yes, I know that when Miami sees that claw, they all get fired up. Okay, Clemson at home, South Carolina, conference game. Miami's a good team, and they have been winning. They're just not that good on the road, so I like Clemson in that game. Kentucky, I love over Florida, -5.5 at Rupp Arena. Here's why. Very simple. They've won 6 conference games in a row. Florida got off to a horrible start. They beat a couple bottom feeders. They go into Kentucky. They don't match up. When you're betting an SEC game, here's all you have to do. Forget the record. Forget 19-13, 20-6. That doesn't matter. Look at the conference schedule. Take out the bottom feeders. And that's going to tell you what the team is doing. And then look at them in the conference at home. So, throw out Vanderbilt that's having a horrible season for some reason this year. I love Kentucky. I'm going to lay the 5.5 on the road. And then now both Kentucky and Florida are 6-3 in the SEC, but Kentucky's won 6 straight in the conference. I think they're hitting stride. Then I'm with Nate on Gonzaga. Look, St. Mary's is a good team, Nate. The Gales are good. I mean, they could be Sweet 16. They could be Elite 8. This is a really good team. When do you get points with Gonzaga? Like 2 times annually? I'm getting 3. St. Mary's is good, but you give me Gonzaga with 3, I'm in. I like the Zags +3. Who wants to jump in?
Yeah, so go ahead.
Oh, all right, thanks. For the record, because I really haven't had a chance to talk about college basketball on this program here. Duke Blue Devils all the way, all the time. Huge Duke Blue Devil fan. Coach K, post-Coach K now, that's always the toughest season. They're playing up and down. But they play North Carolina at Cameron Indoor tonight. I think it's 5:30 Eastern. I don't know what the spread is. I kind of have to lean UNC because of their experience, the team they brought back. And Duke is still trying to figure it out with, like 4 freshmen. This Filipowski guy, I think, is a tremendous talent. He reminds me a lot of Christian Laettner. Look, the NCAA right now, basketball, it's a mess as far as I'm concerned, because I'm old school. I'm a traditionalist. I like the Kansas. I like Kentucky. I like Duke. I like teams like that are at the top or near the top. And this year, you don't have that. A lot of people like that. They talk parity. I'm not looking for parity. All right. I'm looking for blue bloods. I'm looking for classic matchups. And, you can take the parity and go somewhere else with it. So when you look at the top 25, by the way, when's the last time UNC played Duke and neither team or both teams weren't in the top 25? That's
neither of them are.
1925.
How watered down this is. I don't think it's good for college basketball. You're not going to get eyeballs to the sets, watching Houston, watching Alabama, unless, you're talking Alabama football. Purdue, come on, give me a break. Yeah, they got a nice team. The Big Ten is down this year. When Northwestern, for heaven's sakes, is near the top of the Big Ten, something's wrong here. So, I watered down. I'll wait till tourney time. And March Madness, and that's coming up quick, by the way. We're talking maybe a month away.
I didn't know you. I didn't know you were an elitist. I thought we were. I thought you.
Hey,
you don't like
Cowboys.
You don't like parity.
Cubs, Duke, Celtics. Yeah, blue bloods.
All right.
Yeah, I guess Sheriff Clarke. Yeah, I guess Sheriff Clarke's not going to be rooting for the Oklahoma City Thunder anytime soon. Listen, who's hot, who's not? Here's who's not hot, Nate. He's been making me mad for days now. So he starts off like 2-1 on a Saturday, and I'm like, oh, let me tail all Nate's picks, telling him, Nate, you got to write up these college basketball picks on the website, publish them on the website every day. I'll tail them. So he published a couple, and I'm tailing his picks. Then all of a sudden we're going 1-2. 1-2-1. Then on Tuesday, we're like 0-6. So what I did, this is why it's great to be the editor of a gambling website. On Wednesday, I put out an ad and said, we're hiring more college basketball writers because I'm losing all my money. So Nate can do whatever he wants. He can write up those picks, but I'm trying to find some guys who actually pick winners. That's who's not hot. If we're talking about our my one bet really quickly, I like Rutgers -4.5 over, who are they playing today? Just at Michigan State, Big Ten basketball. That'll make Sheriff Clarke really happy. We'd love to see that. Rutgers has an incredible defense. They're all over the court. They force a ton of turnovers. They get a lot of offensive rebounds. Michigan State, weird to be catching points. Let
me just say this. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah,
we're talking Rutgers. You're not talking Northwestern, for heaven's sakes. Rutgers? Really?
I mean, look, I like to win. I like
Those
money.
New Jersey
You know what I mean?
roots are deep, man.
Yeah, that's true. We got a lot of Jersey roots here. Dad's from Jersey. I got a lot of Jersey. I've seen Rutgers. We've been to games at the Rack. It's a team near and dear to my heart. That place goes nuts. It's a tough place to play. Michigan State walking into a really difficult environment.
We went to Rutgers when they played my alma mater, Fairleigh Dickinson University, and
yeah,
so.
Like 12 years ago, it was a live environment.
Like 12 years ago,
it was live. It was a tough place to play.
I think Fairleigh Dickinson. I think in the game, I think they got blown out because I remember at the end it was garbage.
They definitely got blown out.
He had some like 7'5" guy from Italy that they couldn't get his footwork down. That's all I remember. But yeah, that's the
Rutgers -4.5. That's what I'm going with.
Wow, we are scraping the bottom of the barrel talking about Rutgers matchup.
I'm putting it on as soon as I rebuild this fence that fell over.
Hope our
Putting on
listeners have Big
Rutgers.
Ten Network.
Wow.
Yeah.
I got all sorts of channel 607 Rutgers, baby. Let's go.
What league are they in? Are they what are
They're
they
the
in?
Big Ten.
Big
UAB
Ten.
league.
Yeah, they're
Next-
the Big Ten.
Next thing you'll be next week you'll be coming on and saying I love Coastal Carolina or something.
Yeah, sure. I'll take a look at Holy Cross.
University
no
of
Yeah,
Alabama.
stay tuned for my Wofford preview next week.
Yeah. Hey, we'd
I'm
like to
gonna-
win.
I'm going to bet Rutgers today just for the hell of it. Okay, I'm
Please
just going
do.
to see if you're right. I'm going to put some money on, see what happens. But I love my bets. Remember this, guys, because I'm going to go 4-0. Kansas, Clemson, Kentucky, and the Zags +3. All right, that's going to do it for Godzilla Wins, our Godzilla Wins show. You can go to GodzillaWins.com, get everything there. As Jack said, if you can pick an NBA, if you pick a basketball winner, you're in. Just email, go to GodzillaWins.com, and we've got new things coming up every day. Got a bunch of new writers, and look, guys, thanks for being with us for the GodzillaWins.com. Our editor in chief, Jack Fredericks, my son. Want to thank him. Nate Perry in Reno. Nate, 0 for 6. Not good, baby. You got to get a winner. We want to thank Sheriff Clarke, also the
Jack,
blue blood. I just
Jack,
can't.
Oral
I just
Roberts
can't
played.
believe you're a blue blood basketball elitist. I just can't believe it.
Give me the
Rutgers.
line on Oral Roberts, Jack.
I'll get it to you next week. Don't
All
tempt
right.
me.
We'll see you guys next week for Super Bowl Sunday, where maybe Jack will actually make a pick, and then we'll have their millennial props. I don't even know how to bet a prop on DraftKings. I haven't even figured it out. I just bet the line. But these millennials, they like props, and then the other day I had the DraftKings thing on, and my 18-year-old was saying, it was like 3rd and 7, and he's like, "What's the line on Burrow getting a first down?" I'm like, "What?" No, he says, "What's the line? You can bet him if you think you're going to get a first down." I just, you know what? just bet the game. We'll be back next week.